Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Lena. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to talk about my sci-fi favorites. Last week we talked about the fantasy one, and today it's turn of sci-fi. I have compiled a good chunk of them, honestly, but as in the other list, not that much has changed, to be honest. I feel like my favorites are still mostly the same. Maybe like a few variations and such, but not that many, honestly. So this one is not in any particular order because I like my top three. I like my top three, but the rest is just on the same level mostly. So without further ado, let's just get started. I talked about this one a lot, and especially not that long ago since I've reread it. But Hench by Natalie Sina Walshots. I love this. This is basically a story about a henchwoman, and the thing is, she works for the villains. This is very common in this world, working for heroes and villains, and she is severely injured by a hero when she was working, and she realizes that maybe heroes cost more to society than villains, and since then she goes against, finding heroes. And the thing is, I compare this a lot to The Boys. It's not as dark as The Boys, definitely not as dark. The comic books are super fucking dark, but the TV show is fantastic, by the way. I highly recommend it. And it's not as dark, but I like the fact that this woman uses her intelligence to fight against the heroes. It's not like going physically against them like in The Boys, but yeah. Overall, I just love it so much. It's just such an entertaining read, and I love the protagonist. She's just the best. So this is a recent edition, but this is The Ferryman by Justin Cronin. Justin Cronin is has another appearance in this list, but I read this a couple of weeks ago and I just really liked it. This is a utopian type of book, basically. We have these really like cool utopia place. I just don't remember the name. Prospera, yeah, I mean Prospera. And the thing is, each time you feel like you're dying, you don't really die. You go to this island through the ferry and you are kind of not recycled, but basically your memory is wiped and you start over again. Like, this is a very well-known procedure and it's just super cool. But the thing is, after the death of his father, here our ferryman starts seeing like some really weird things happening on Prospera, and we go from there, of course, utopia, dystopia type of thing. I really liked it. It's so enjoyable. I just really like Justin Cronin's stories and the way he tells stories in general. Like, it's just so good. It's a bit of a chunker. I didn't mind it. I flew through this like in like 2 days. I was done. I was like, damn, I want more. It's also standalone, so I will highly recommend it. Another standalone, this is Seveneves by Neil Stephenson, and I love this one. I do have to say it's a little bit different from the rest of them, since this is a generational story. The thing is, the moon is shattered and it's going to collide against Earth. The thing is, there are not like big chunks. It's not going to destroy Earth, but the constant like fall of these pieces is going to cause like a atmosphere of fire that is going to consume everything. So there's a ship launch that is going to over Earth, and we'll follow the inhabitants of that ship at first and then several years later, and it's just great. I do have to say that I agree with some people, like the jump between the present like kind of timeline and the future is a bit weird, but I just really liked it in general. I just love this type of discussion, type of science fiction books. Like, what are we going to do? Should we just destroy this? Should we continue this? What makes us like humans? I just really like it in general. So, highly recommend this one. Then this duology is fantastic. This is the first book, A Memory Called Empire, and if you like political intrigue and stuff, this is a great one. Basically, we're going to follow our main character, and she is sent into this station, and the thing is, she is taking the position of a man who has been recently murdered, and once she gets there, she starts to investigate. I just really liked it. I think book 2 is great, but book 1 is just fantastic. Book 2 is more of a space opera, even though this one is also one, but I don't know, I just this one is fantastic. Highly recommend this duology. Also, the main characters here are fantastic. Like, the relationship is just so cool. Here we have another one, Pines by Blake Crouch. Oh my god, I just love this series so much. Especially book 1. This is a dystopia. Well, again, a utopia. But basically this man wakes up, he's from the Secret Service, and wakes up in this village called Wayward Pines, and everyone here is super happy, everything is going super fine, nothing is absolutely wrong in this town. The thing is, once he's there, he realizes he cannot leave. It's just, this one is great. I love it so much. I also really like the first season of the show. This has been adapted, and the first season is only almost like a page-by-page adaptation of the 3 books. But especially the first one is just so good. But yeah, I will highly recommend the first season. The second season is awful. Awful. But the first season is fucking great, so I'll highly recommend it. Then probably one of my favorite sci-fi, hard sci-fis, Pandora Star. This is part 1 of the Commonwealth Saga. This is also a duology, and these are gigantic. This is by Peter F. Hamilton, who is a master of at science fiction. The thing is, this, if you like world building, you're going to love this. You're going to love this, because these stories are mostly like plot and world building. Characters are there, but there's not that much character development in his stories, honestly. He's definitely just like more focused on exploring the world, and I'm really fine with that. I do have to continue reading The Reality Dysfunction, because I read the first one and I really need to continue that. But after that, after all the ones that I've read, this one remains my favorite. It reminds me a lot of the world of Mass Effect. Like, it's very rich and vast, so it's great. But basically in this one, we're going to follow at first this scientist, and he's, you know, watching the sky one night, and he starts completely disappears. It doesn't explode, it's just 1 minute is there and the next one is not. So they send basically a starship trying to figure out what the hell happens, and once they get there they discover a force field. It's just great, but there's so much more than that. There's just a lot. But the thing is, if you don't like chunky stories with a ton of characters, with a ton of world building, you're not going to enjoy this. Like, it's so much. I read it last year, and I've read it twice already, and I just love it so much. But this is the Freeze Frame Revolution, and this is by one of my favorite sci-fi authors, Peter Watts. This is a novella, and it's great. It's hard sci-fi. I just love it so much. But basically, it's about a group of people that dedicate themselves to building wormholes in space. The thing is, one day, the AI of the ship starts going a little bit nuts. They kind of want to leave the work, and the thing is, they have to conspire, but they are awakened at different times, and so they have to just come together. It's just so weird and so complicated at times, but it's a great ride. It's a really short novella. I think it's under 200 pages, but it's just so worth it. I really need to get a physical copy of it, because I don't know where my copy is, but this is Metro 2033, and I was doubting between putting this one here and on the favorite of horror, because it's a little bit of both, basically, because this one is a post-apocalyptic read. You're probably familiar with this one, not only for the book, but because of the game. The game is a great adaptation. Like, the first game is a great adaptation, the rest is not really. But the first game is just great. I wish we had like a TV show of this one. It could be so like mysterious. But in this first one, we're going to follow Artyom, and basically he lives in the tunnels of the metro because there was a nuclear bombing, and everyone took refuge on the tunnels of the metro. And every station is just like its little community. But the thing is, the tunnels connecting the stations are really creepy. There might be creatures there might be not. It's just so much. Again, so much. I just love it. One of my like favorite scenes is here. It's just like, it still terrifies me to this day. And I read this one kind of recently, and it's just still as good. Just as good. The rest of the series does not exist. Does not exist, especially book 3. There's no book 3. There's no book 3. But this first one is still one of my favorites, and I just love it so much. Before I forget, also one of my favorites, a post-apocalyptic too. But this is, oh my god, this Strain. That's how it's called in English, the Strain. Yeah. This also has a TV adaptation, and I did not really like the adaptation. Like, I've watched it on its entirety, but it's not really that good. I just really love book 1. Again, the series is not as strong on book 2 and 3, but book 1 is just so mysterious, so good. But basically it's about following this doctor, Ephraim, and he works for the CDC, and he gets a call that a plane has landed with their lights off and no one is moving inside. So once they get there, basically everyone's dead. But are they really dead? There is a mysterious coffin also in the plane. It's just great. It's just great. We also have like flashbacks from one of the characters. It's just fantastic. I just really liked it. I highly recommend this first book. Like if you're really into the first book, continue with the series. If not, with the first book, you're fine. But it's just really good. I just love this one so much. It's been such a long time since I've talked about this series, but this is the Machineries of Empire. This is for the first book, Nine Fox Gambit by Jun Lee. And this is another hard sci-fi that sometimes is a lot to take into, but in general, it's just so good. Like, so good. But let me try to explain this one. So we're just basically going to follow like 2 characters here. The first one is Cherries, and she is tasked with retrieving this fortress, this space fortress, basically. And for that, she's going to use the help of this like kind of legendary commander. And their story is fantastic. Fantastic. But this general, he's just such a cool character, man. He's one of my favorite characters of all time. Like, he's just so cool. But yeah, I highly, from all the series here, this one is one of the ones that I recommend the most. It's fantastic. All the 3 books are great. Especially the last book is just like fantastic. But yeah, highly recommend this one. You might get a little bit lost, but it's fine. The ride is amazing. Then, as I've told you, The Passage by Justin Cronin. I love this trilogy so much. This is a post-apocalyptic vampire book, and I love it with such a passion. This is one of the first like chunky series that I read, and I still remember it so well. Like, they're gigantic. The prologue of this series is like more than 300 or 400 pages, just the prologue alone. Then there's a time jump, and then we start the story. And honestly, it fits with the story so well. But all of these are over 1,000 pages, so good luck with that. But it's fantastic. You basically follow a group of survivors, and then something weird starts happening with some of the vampires, and they go and investigate. But there's just so much in the story. Like, I cannot even start grasping this one. But we also have like a disappearance, and then they decide to go looking for him. It's just so much, but I love it so much. I read book 3 in like a day. I couldn't put it down. I cried like a baby, but The Passage is fantastic. There's also an adaptation that came up quite recently. It was cancelled, sadly. Just the story of the show is only the prologue, so we never got into the actual book. But it was actually not that bad. Honestly, I was just like, oh, it's kind of faithful, but it takes some things from the other books, from the story of the other books. But it was fine. It was fine. Oh, I love this one. There's no Antimemetics division, and this book is so weird. I recently discovered that I was actually connecting the dots on my mind, but I didn't realize. I said that this reminded me a lot of Control. And the thing is, this is actually based on, oh my god, the name here, I almost say SPFC, no. It's actually based on that, so it makes so much sense. Now everything is connected, but basically this is such a ride. I don't want to spoil it, but there's even like parts that are deleted in the book because it's just so cool. It plays a lot with memory because in here they fight Antimemetics, and the thing is, these things, once you look at them, you forget. It's just kind of like the silence on Doctor Who. So they have to take, in this division, they have to take these drugs. And of course, this comes to play here when everything starts going wrong and they don't know what's really happening, because some of them don't remember, but some of them do. And it's just such a weird mix. This is such a ride. I cannot recommend this enough if you're looking for such a fucking weird book. Like, it's just so good. I really want to get into more of these authors' stories. I got an ebook of another one of his books, and I think I might read it next month. I'm in that mood. To 2 honorable mentions before we get into the top 3. The top 3 are just like the same as always. But special attention to Stories of Your Lives and Others. Not exactly like the full collection, but Stories of Your Lives, the novella. I actually have a tattoo in there for it, but it's basically the story that the movie The Arrival is based on, and it's just cool. Oh my god, I have cat hairs all over this book, but it's just so good. It's basically about trying to find a language that trying to understand the language of these aliens that just arrived on Earth. If you've seen The Arrival, like, the novella is just as good. Just as good. And that film is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, it's just so good. So good in so many levels. But yeah, check this one out. And special mention to Velocity Weapon, because I think it's such a like underrated and super solid series. The trilogy is complete, but in this one you're basically going to follow 2 siblings. One of them is in the present and he's maneuvering this war between these 2 different like planets, and the other one is the sister, and she wakes up in this enemy ship and she discovers that actually like 200 years have passed since the end of the war, and she's just like, what the hell? Extremely solid read. Couldn't recommend it enough. So let's just talk about the top 3. Not Firefall, but Blindside, because again, this is a bind up of Echopraxia and Blindside. Blindside is book 1. I kind of think that I need to read Echopraxia again and see if I like it more. But Blindside is one of those books that is just weird. And the thing is, it's hard sci-fi, but it's also weird sci-fi. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but it's fine. This book has vampires on space. Yes, I know it sounds weird. I know it sounds weird. But in this world, vampires are a thing. They actually kind of low-key prey on humans, and everyone's kind of afraid of them, even though they are part of society. And the thing is, in this world, they receive like a distress call from outside of our planet, and they are just like, okay, let's investigate what's happening there. This is also sci-fi horror, and the horror here is just great, because the thing is, there's a scene here where you cannot actually see, and you can only see the bad thing through the corner of your eyes, and the description is fucking fantastic, and I just love it so much, because the dude is just like, I cannot see anything, what's out there? And everyone is just like, it's there, can you not see it? It's just amazing. I love it so much. I read it like 2 or 3 times already. I feel like it might be time for the next one, but it's just great. It's very weird though, very weird. So just go into this one with caution. It's extremely weird. Then of course, the Sanity series, which is like a contender for #1 at this rate, honestly. But the thing is, each book of this series just gets fucking better. And I've been giving this series like 5 stars since book 1. So what am I gonna do now? I don't know. But I definitely think that book 1, Empire Surveillance, is the weakest one, can we say it? Like, it has a thing that I'm not usually one to vibe with. We have gladiators here, because in this world they kind of fight with swords, because your personal shield is just like so powerful that blasters do barely any damage, so they use like very like powerful swords. That's great, love that. Like, they have reason to use swords and not just because it's cool. And they have here a gladiator kind of stage in one of the planets, and our main character is kind of trapped there for a bit. And that part, I just didn't like it when I first read this book. The rest is great. We have an alien civilization, and they are fighting these aliens too, these Yeltsin that eat humans, and they are slowly taking over the human planets, and it's just great. It's just great on so many levels. But the thing is, that part, when I first read it, I thought it was so long. But when I recently reread this series, it's not that long, honestly. It just felt really long. And probably because I read it physically, so I was struggling a little bit. But this last time around, I listened to it, and it wasn't that long. So, great. But if you didn't vibe with the first book, give it a shot to the second one. The second one is such on another level. Like, it's just like sci-fi at its best. It's just so good. In the last, like, 2 books, like Kingdoms of Death and Ashes of Man, and even The Demon in White, they are so fucking good. Like, so fucking good. I cannot pinpoint a single flaw in those books. Like, they're just fucking great. And it just keeps getting better. I thought it was going to be a 5-book-long series. Apparently it is not. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. It just gets better. Like, Christopher Rocky just gets better with every book, which is so hard to do. Such a contender for number 1. Like, when it's done, we'll see. But, man, it's good. And at last, number 1. Shocker to anyone. The Expanse. This is the first book, Leviathan Wakes, which I decided to reread this week. I will be rereading the entire series throughout the month. Probably throughout next month too. But this series is just so good, man. Like, also the adaptation is fucking fantastic. So if you've not seen The Expanse, I highly recommend that you do. It's a really good adaptation, but at the same time, it does not adapt the fully content of the books. So you're fine reading both. You will enjoy them both for different reasons. And it's just so great in general. But in this first book, we are going to follow the crew of the Canterbury, and they discover a distress call from a ship. When they go there, they start to investigate, and basically another ship comes in and blows up the Canterbury. So here our captain Holden basically released this message claiming that a Mars vessel destroyed the Canterbury, and they start a war basically between Mars, the Veld, and Earth. It's just fantastic. If you like political intrigue, political maneuvering, this series is for you because it has action. It also has like alien viruses. It also has aliens, and it also has like so many politics. It's just so cool, man. So cool. Like, this series has everything, and it's just such a cool like addition to sci-fi in general. I must say fantasy. I do have to say though, the ending was not my favorite, but still, the road was just so good. I love these characters so much. Like, every single one of them, especially the crew of the Rocinante, they are just the fucking best. They're just the fucking best. So yeah, I highly recommend to check it out. I'm for sure that everyone has read The Expanse by now, but still, do it. So yeah, those are my favorite sci-fi books. What are yours? Please just let me know down in the comments below. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye.